we need you. We need you now. So yeah, we're having actually a lot of back and forth about legato technique between a few players, and I have a question. So, in your technique, typically when you're using your index finger, we talked about this a little bit. Mm-hmm. Would you say that you sort of roll forward and roll back, like you will? Let's say you're playing a descending passage, like it's like, I don't know, 3 notes per string or whatever, 2 notes per string. Is your index finger typically off the guitar after you play a note? Or do you keep it planted?
I think it depends. I mean, I have to like, all right, if I'm doing a descending line, let's say, it's usually planted as long as possible, and then while the other fingers are making their journey downward, it prepares for the next. Like arrival point. I think that's probably the same for a lot of people.
Yeah, but like there's sort of. Will you ever find yourself sort of making the note by hammering on with that index finger? Like
a lot of times it is kind of sliding into it. Or if I want to do hammer-ons, I can do it that way too. I don't know if this is helping at all. This
is helping. This really is helping. So okay. So when you're doing just like scalar kind of things like that, would you say that like I mean the question is like there's sort of a myth about Holdsworth and legato playing that I'm still not sure exactly how mythical is the myth. Which is like the descending, it's sort of a series of hammer-ons.
Right, yeah, like he didn't like this, apparently he didn't like the sound of a pull-off.
Right.
Like he thought it sounded like a cat or something.
Yeah.
He wasn't into that kind of way of approaching things. I can see the benefit of that, I guess.
When you were doing this, like kind of I'll rephrase like what I want to know. When last time you were showing us in a pretty impressive way, I might add, the left hand only kind of improvisations that you can do.
Yeah.
To do that, when you're crossing strings with your index finger, I mean, you have to hammer on, right? Or if it's a pull off, it has to be followed by a hammer on with the other fingers.
Yeah, I think in terms of like what choices you make, whether you do a pull off or you use some other technique to make it happen. Again, it's a choice of like how you want it to sound, and how you disguise that it's the sound of a pull-off or a hammer-on or not, because sometimes that's not what you want to hear. I mean, oftentimes if I'm just playing with my left hand and experimenting with that, the hand has its own independence, and there's you need to build up strength, but you're not hearing this like super out of place like volume differential thing happening, right? I think that's kind of what I'm going for. A lot of it has to do with how close you can maintain your fingers to the fretboard without having to.
Is that something you've worked on very like intentionally, like keeping the fingers close?
Yeah, close to the fretboard. Because I think oftentimes it almost seems counterintuitive, because you think
You need the weight.
I need to make this sound happen, so I need to push down really hard for it to happen. But I've definitely focused on like trying to make the sound more seamless, if you will, and keeping your fingers as close to the fretboard as possible is a big part of that. So it's kind of like a funny like dichotomy. There's, you know, you want there to be strength, but a lot of people would probably think, okay, so if I need the strength, I need to approach from a very high angle, from a, you know, a higher place above the fretboard, which isn't to me necessary.
Okay. No, that's actually
keep it close to the fretboard. Yeah, and it affects the timing as well. We talked about time feel last time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think last time brought up a simple exercise I use for keeping your fingers. I'm like stuttering here, fingers close to the fretboard, and it's just like playing a stream of 8th notes or 16th notes and starting, you know, getting a flow going. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but like improvising different contours and making all the notes kind of sound even, more or less. Yeah.
Now, in your technique, like when you were doing it, something that was I found kind of perplexing is like you were sort of demonstrating it with your right hand in not a muting position. Mm-hmm. How does that work? How do you keep the noise? Like, especially like when you're like, is that something that will only work in a cleaner kind of context?
It definitely depends on how much dirt I have going through the amp, for sure.
Yeah, so like the dirtier you are, the more you have to control it there. Yeah.
Or you know, work the volume knob. You know, I'm writing that a lot. Oftentimes I'm like writing the volume knob during a solo, a volume pedal, my tone knob to find the right balance. It's a constant adjustment. I think it's hard to find a sweet spot all the time in any given room, especially if it's, and sometimes it's too loud to get the kind of, I find if I get frustrated oftentimes at gigs, like with my own playing, it's one, because of my own playing, but it's also because of not being able to interact dynamically in the way I'd like to, because of the room being too loud, everyone being too loud, and then you lose some of that subtlety of the interaction you have with the fretboard as a result, or reacting with the amp. Those kinds of things can only happen if there's there's enough dynamics at play, and you can't control that stuff. But yeah,
sure.
Just venting now.
No, but it's absolutely true. Back to that, I guess, topic of time feel and getting the time feel you want. I'm wondering, you have a way to play over tracks, right? We can hear you do that.
Yeah.
Let me send you just something real simple. I just want to see what you would do with it. Just a one chord vamp.
Okay. I'll have to airdrop it to my other computer here, because that's the one that has the speakers.
Yeah, you can just play.
Is that better?
What? So yeah, walk us through some of what you're thinking. Like there are a lot of slow stuff was great, pentatonic stuff was great, but the more out sounding things and the flow you were getting into, what is happening there? I guess harmonically, like, what are you using for the more outside kind of things on a track like this?
It falls into a bunch of different categories, I think. A lot of times I am using chord shapes as inspiration, or arpeggios, maybe certain sequences. At one point I was kind of using some triad pair stuff.
So which triad pairs? Like what's something that you remember doing?
I remember going in between B major and A flat major, that kind of thing.
Like a diminished kind of thing?
Yeah. I like that kind of shit.
So you're sweeping a lot, but it does sound very legato.
Yeah, it's a mixed technique for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So stuff like that. Other times I'll take like just a pattern and move it around. Like, let's say we have like kind of an A minor sort of shape.
Okay.
And use that as a kind of module that you move around.
Just chromatic.
Yeah.
How are you fingering that?
So I got my pinky. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. It's not exactly what I played, but
it's like a constant structure kind of thing where it's like that's the shape and you're just starting at a different point.
Yeah, using it as like a general means of of inspiration, and then finding a nice place to resolve. So landing there. You can resolve chromatically or do like a neighbor tone thing. Let's see some of the other.
I connect to his approach. It's like it seems in a way less structured and more playful. Like it's like you're not like strictly in something. You're like you'll be like even the way you talk about like modules, like using shapes as inspiration.
Yeah.
Not necessarily being in some sort of like, like it seems like a lot of the time you're sort of, trying to make something work. That's not
experimenting. And there's still a semblance there. I think your ear's ultimately the judge in terms of what sounds good, what you like. It's more about what your ears will allow when it comes to outside playing. And I think there's a tendency to think some of it's when we hear someone playing outside sounds random. I think if it's done with intention, and a good sense of time, it's like you can kind of get away with anything. But yeah, there's so many different ways of going about it. I do like looking at harmonic structures like chord shapes as a means of inspiration. And there were some other approaches I was kind of using, like implying progressions, that sort of thing.
What kind of progressions? What would be like your go-tos? Not everything you've done in the like. Like what?
There's so many ways. So like say we're starting A minor. Let's say we want to do something based on a diminished structure, and then use that as an inspiration for a progression. Let's say we had C major 7. So we're still in A minor territory here. And we just think about the major 7s, the major 7 structures as our module, if you will. And then we move around, maybe with the root notes being a diminished, implying a diminished structure. That's a pretty wild sound. So I'm going C, E, F sharp. I'm using the diminished triad as my roots, but I'm playing the major 7 arpeggios connected with all those.
Major 7, F sharp, major 7?
Yes, C flat, E flat, F sharp, and then resolve from there somehow. That's a pretty wild sound. I like it. But this is just me coming up with like thought experiments and going for it. And
I love that. I mean, it's like, especially like on the static thing, it's if you don't do that, it's kind of like, what are you doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's you got to make it bendy and cool. Okay, so well, in terms of like the way you were fingering some of those arpeggios, just because I'm curious about your technique. You're throwing in like,
yeah, trying to find those pivot points, so it doesn't just sound like, which is fine too.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find different ways of voice leading that sound, a little different to my ears.
Mm-hmm. So you'll use some tensions that kind of sound good on that C major 7.
Yeah. So you can either, there's a bunch of options in terms of transitioning between these two sounds. You can use this as the pivot point, or use that.
That's something you'll look for when you're doing these kind of things with the chords. You'll look for like a note that's in common and use that as a pivot to kind of change direction.
In common, or shift away from. It was Coltrane was saying you're always a half step away from a chord tone. I think that's something he said.
Yeah, man. Seems like every great musician has a quote about like half steps.
Yeah, so, and I'm stealing Coltrane, so.
All right, I love that. And how'd you get to the F sharp?
Maybe this way, or it's like practicing a bunch of different ways of approaching that is useful. Maybe something like that, or up, descending rather than going up.
You know what's to my ear, because we talked. I don't know if you know Thomas Dawson. I
know about him. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a few of these things with him, and he has great technique, and he went really far into the realm of like Tim Miller and those 2-1-2 patterns.
Yeah.
And the thing I'm hearing more from your playing, you play a lot of consecutive like thirds, like not necessarily in a key, but like it seems like like I'm really getting like this. It's a different sound. It's like it's a very it reminds me a little more of like I don't know, Chris Potter, Brecker, people like that. When you're like in your lines, like there's more of like a modern jazz kind of edge to it. Like it's and I mean. I do, and I dig that. I mean, it's not just with these kind of lines, but like a lot of the lines you play, like it's just like a ton of thirds to get through, especially in the fast lines. It's very cool. I don't know if you see yourself that way, but just like
I definitely, the guys you're mentioning, the horn players, are like big inspirations, and. Definitely come from that kind of jazz background, and I think like we talked about last time in terms of Holdsworth gleaning inspiration from that sensibility. There's a lot to be discovered there, and a lot that makes sense when you put two and two together, like where he was coming from sound wise. Not that he he played the same things I do, or had the same approach, but there's a sensibility you can hear in his playing. That makes sense. He came from that horn player like sensibility.
Sure.
And I love taking inspiration from other instruments, piano, saxophone, and trying to apply that in a way where it's not just about playing notes. It's about, okay, how do I get that sound? How do I get that to translate onto a guitar in a way that feels good? Like, for instance, if I'm transcribing a piano solo, how do I get my fingers to react with the fretboard in such a way that it feels like or sounds more along the lines of like the keys moving up and down? How do I get that feel?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an abstract way of looking at it, but
but I mean, I think at the end of the day, like those are the kind of things that actually get you to improve, because you have to like take something that you're perceiving and just make it happen in a way that you use, right? It's like a lot of times you can transcribe things and just get like the notes and without any sort of way of using it musically. But like the moment you can make it make sense on your instrument, it becomes useful. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm picking. I like that idea. So we're talking about like really using parallel structures that aren't necessarily related in any way, but the fact that you see the relationship there. Like this one's kind of like a set interval. So you're taking like C major, E flat major, F sharp, and then coming back. In terms of like diminished vocabulary, what are some go-tos for you? Like with like just half whole kind of things, like in terms of how you physically space them on the fretboard.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We can talk about that. It's interesting. I was just thinking about the 7-sharp 9 chord. That's so common in guitar language, especially, and how if you really are going to play over that sound, besides our normal blues kind of vernacular, what really correctly can you do to play over a sound like that? And half whole diminished is a great option. So all right, so if I use a track like this and play over or try and think about diminished ideas, maybe you can I'll play for a little bit, and if you want to ask about something
100%.
All right, let's see. Right there, for instance.
Right there is good.
Because there's that 8-note octatonic thing going on there. I feel like it lends itself to more of these 4-note per string kind of more stretchy, if you will, positionings. But this sequence in particular, I was kind of doing that diminished sequence in minor thirds kind of idea, but like a wider scale, I guess. So target notes, A, C, E flat.
So target notes, you mean that like you sort of orient your vision when you're shifting from like area to air.
And then there's some chromatic stuff going on in between. But it's, like you said, orienting yourself visually around, okay, where am I going to land? How's this going to work out?
That kind of thing, it looks like you're not picking anything. So
if I am, it's super low key, disguised.
Yeah. What is that pattern slowly?
So if I start on like on E natural.
Oh.
It's like a sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. I see. I see. Okay.
Come up with a bunch of different like variations on it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I really do like, you know, you're one of the guys where like the physicality of your playing is really not at all what I thought it is when like before we talked. Like, you know, it's like a real blend of a lot of techniques. Like it's like the sweeping is a part of it, the legato is a part of it. A lot of it is like one note per string or like just odd combination, but it doesn't follow any sort of specific mechanical pattern. Like it really, you know, I mean, it's weird when most people would tell me that they're going for a time feel, my first assumption would be that they're, you know, being like that they're half lying and they're thinking about something else, but it doesn't, you know, it's like, it's not, it clearly, I mean, it does come across that way. It's like, you know, it's creating a sort of flow. And it's like, you know, and it's like really like the sound you're after is really driving the ship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Do you mind playing a little bit more over that track?
Sure. Do you want me to highlight anything in particular?
Like just like the diminished stuff, so we can see.
Stuff? Okay. I was going for some there.
Yeah. Those kind of triads?
Yeah, it's kind of like thinking about, it's almost like a 13 sharp 9 sound, right? But there's that flat 9 in there too, like, you know what I'm thinking of it as? You could think of it this way. It's like this Lydian structure on top. This F sharp Philippian structure, G flat with the A in the bass. And then start sequencing that in diminished terms. Getting ahead of myself.
Cool. That was really cool. And you were doing some sort of ascending, very Holdsworthy and kind of sounding thing.
Yeah. It was another sequence in minor thirds. So it's that, mixed third kind of sound.
Yeah. That minor third. Yeah, that's great.
That kind of thing.
You're going up, down, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely something a kind of sequence I picked up from Holdsworth. It wasn't something I transcribed directly, but it definitely reminds me of Alan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's, when stuff gets into your playing like that, it actually works because it's like, it's your impression. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you can read. It's like it's what you hear over like A minor, and it totally makes sense. Cool, and it's also like that one, especially like from C. It's really like a blues scale, right?
Yeah. There's. It's funny because if you were to listen to like the drums were yellow or something crazy like that, and check out, which I'm sure you have, like, or think about what you're saying, like the bluesy character of this kind of approach, sure. This diminished thing. Some of the stuff Alan's going for, like, it feels very like blues centric to me, at least in terms of like the melodic quality of it. I don't think Alan would admit to that, would have admitted to that, but yeah, that's what I hear as well.
Brett was just showing us a lick, like one of the Alan licks, and it was just like in a diminished scale, like 2/4 of minor seventh apart, like, and then that and flat and third. Yeah.
Where is he playing?
So it's like. Yeah, so that's one of the Brett licks.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's killer stuff. Now, let me send you one more thing. Change up the tempo a little bit, and I'm very curious specifically about, like, last time when we were working through things, really cool, like quintuplet-y kind of things, but obviously I don't want to force you to go into a specific tunnel with it, but like a lot of the fast stuff you're doing, it's sort of like against the groove in terms of subdivision. I really do like quite a bit. I don't know if this will inspire something like that, but I would like to try.
Sure.
This is just a D minor thing. Fingers crossed. Dude, when you're doing the sextuplet kind of thing, like, the fuck was going on there?
I'm not totally sure.
But I would say, like, in those kind of speeds over a groove like that, what are the, like, just motion, like, what are some of the motions that you would go to? It just sounds like falling downstairs. I just love it.
Yeah, I've heard it described that way before.
Yeah.
A lot of times I like taking tracks like this, whatever the backing track situation might be, and slowing it down, and really, like, it's almost as if you feel like you're pretending you're playing the line in slow motion.
Yes.
Rather than feeling like you're working something up to tempo, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe I'll slow this down by like 25%. And I'll work on some groupings, you know. "30-second notes," that kind of shit. Or I'll slow it down even more to really try and warm up and get control over each of the notes. Let's see. Let's slow it down to 50. I'll focus on
you've been trying to, like, that you're starting with.
It was. I think it might have been some diminished thing. It's like diminished shapes with the chromatic notes.
That big interval in there. Yeah.
I'll take specific lines like that and try and like work on them for a while till it feels good.
And then kind of imagining it's like that kind of thing, and then when you bring it back up, it's kind of like slaps into place.
I mean, you know, it is really the thing of working on something slowly and then developing it tempo wise. But I don't know, it almost feels cooler to imagine each of the motions in slow motion rather than it being like this.
Sure, you just gotta avoid the
glorious thing. You know,
you have to avoid the temptation of working on the subdivisions that will not exist when
yeah.
You want to tread on whatever tempo you're given.
Yeah, and you know, not all of it is like really conscious in terms of like what rhythmic subdivision I'm going for. It's kind of like, you know, you work you want to be able to, of course, have control over, like, all right, rhythmically, I want to do some 16th note thing here and physically be able to do that. But in terms of in the moment, what I decide to do, I'm not like, okay, now I will do 16th notes, you know.
Right.
It's whatever feels right.
I see that. Yeah, man, I have to say, like, the amount of, you know, it tends to be with a lot of players that when they go kind of full throttle and, like, you know, play their fast shit, the content of what they're playing seems more boxy than they're, like, even like with good players, with like fusion players, like they'll have more of that kind of contour freedom with their 16th note lines, but then, like, you know, their very fast subdivisions sound more locked into a pattern. But like with you, it's really drawing from the same place. I really do like that. It's like
I appreciate that.
It's the same kind of lines, just faster. You know, like it's not different contours. So I mean, and it's like, you know, just It takes a lot of control.
Yeah, I'm working on it, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't
Music's hard.
it? Dude, music is it's crazy.
Uh,
It really is hard.
yeah.
You know? Especially like, this thing that you chose to do with it.
Or it chose me to do it.
Right.
You're gonna suffer, Alex. No. Okay.
Yeah. Well, awesome, dude. I think I tortured you enough for this session.
Oh, not at all, man. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, and I do like thank you for being so generous and being willing to be put on the spot to play over these things. These it's great, Emmerich,
Yeah, man. I appreciate the interest, and it is interesting in a lot of ways. Like trying to describe stuff that's like kind of instinctual, like
yeah. But that's the shit that we want to learn from you, It's because the other stuff is just it's publicly available, but this stuff is just personal and interesting. So yeah, for people watching, I'm assuming you teach Zoom lessons.
Yeah.
Feel free. We're gonna link. We're gonna have a link to Alex's site in the description. Study with him. Study the video, and hopefully we'll have you back real soon.
Oh man, would love to be on. Thanks for the support. Are you going to be out at NAMM?
No, I have to do family stuff. Are you going? You're gonna be in the booth?
No, Kiesel's not going to be there this year. I have to go down to play a show with Simon in Anaheim though. So we're going to start up some protocol shows again in January.
That's amazing. Are you guys touring before the cruise, or?
We have like a couple dates like in the States before then. Okay. Some stuff in California in January, and then before the cruise, I think we're playing some spot in Florida. But yeah, and then
is it the same lineup, Jacob?
Same lineup. Yeah.
Excited to hear that again. That's
well, we'll hang on the cruise either way. So
we will drink the booze.
Oh, it goes without saying. It's a dangerous setting.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for hanging.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. Peace.